He's a world-famous cyber sleuth. He's known for breaking a spy ring operating over the internet, and his best-selling book, The Cuckoo's Egg, depicts that hacker's chase. His new book, Silicon Snake Oil, provokes new thinking in the age of the internet. He's currently teaching at the University of California, Berkeley. Please welcome Clifford Stoll as he gives us his second ideas on the information highway.
Thanks to you. Thank you, thank you. Hot ciggity, I'm tickled to be here and was given 1 pint of chocolate milk, and with luck there'll be another one here, but looks like it's just water. Should there be some chocolate milk, I'd be glad to
get you some.
More sugar. Let's see, what I'd like to do, first of all, is say welcome to first-time surf folk, because I'm a second-time surf person, actually a second and a half time. It was my delight to be here, to be at the Portland version of Surf about, oh, thank you, you're wonderful. It was my delight to be at the surf meeting about 7 years ago, and for those of you who are first-time Sequent returners, or the first time here, I'm just tickled to come back, and I say welcome to you, and at the same time apologize to you, because what I'd like to say, and what would be most fun for me to talk about, would be what I said. So, I can do a better job over here. There's a little projector gizmo that, with luck, will show what I have to say. Video switch. Great. Namely, what I'd like to talk about today is, mostly on my thumb, the word skepticism. I'd like to talk about 4 myths of the internet. I left a finger blank in case I came up with another idea. I'd like to mention rule number 2, and with luck, when I close, I'll talk about all truth. All of which has something to do with, there's something written here that a word that I haven't heard yet, and I'm amazed that it's my opportunity to use the L word. Where's my, yeah. In listening to the talks earlier today, somebody will tell me when to shut up, no? Talk fast, show lots of slides. I was struck with the idea of less functionality, lower cost, and equal reliability, because right now I'm writing a book on the history of the mechanical calculator. I'm interested in Friedan calculators and Monroes and Marchands. How once upon a time, when you calculated your payroll, it was all done on a mechanical calculator. It had a crunch, and a little motor that turned around. Really cool stuff, and lots of push buttons. It turns out these mechanical calculators cost like $1,200 or so, and they're all pushed aside in a span of about 3 years, from 1969 to 1972, by the 4-function calculator. And suddenly, this whole industry of making gears and hobbing tiny little calculating gears, it all disappeared. And I was struck with how these mice, the little 4-function hand calculators, pushed aside all of these dinosaurs. And today you can't find a mechanical calculator anywhere. I was just struck with how, these new technologies strike in places where you kind of don't expect them, which isn't what I wanted to mention. What I did during a talk earlier today is, while Casey and Peter were talking, I sort of just kept track of how many times people mentioned SMP and SCO and NT, and how often people said AIX in Unix. But the one word I didn't hear anyone say was Linux. And I can't figure it, because it seems to me, I ought to disqualify myself for a second. Like many, if not most of you, I love Unix, and I'm tickled to speak to other Unix jocks. To me, it's one of the joys of computing to be around people who don't feel that computing means a GUI. It means actually being able to type something, get a reaction on the screen in front of you, and dealing with something with multiprocessing. Oh, wonderful stuff. And so, to me, Linux I see as an interesting thing coming down the pike. And in one sense, it's scary because it's designed for these little computers. It's Unix for the common folk. And I'm wondering, in all of the collaboration with SCO and IBM and all of the high-end data center development that's taking place, I wonder, well, where are we going to get the next generation of Unix jocks from? Where are the people who are filling out employment forms going to be coming from? Well, in Unix land, they're going to be coming from Linuxville. They're not going to start out knowing AIX. They're not going to start out knowing high-end Unix. They're going to start out by knowing, oh, Linux. And so it seems to me that it's in our best interest, that is to say, it's in the Unix lovers and the data center lovers, the computer lovers' interest, the NT lovers' interest, to encourage a diversity of operating systems which might include Linux. And so I'm just mentioning that in hopes that later on in the week, someone, if not on the board, but someone in the audience might ask a few difficult to answer questions having to do with this, all of which has nothing to do with what's written on my hand, but a little bit to do with my own selfish interests involved in computing. As much availability and utility of NT, I'm delighted to think of an operating system company feeling that reliability and robustness is important. Oh, it's music to my ears. When System 6 came out in 1978, to think that reliability had any importance to a computer company, a simpler interface. So I'm thinking about these things even as I'm trying to organize my talk. But my talk really is about skepticism. And as much as I'm an astronomer, I'm also someone who feels that, one of the nice things about astronomy is it doesn't affect anyone. If I make a mistake in calculating the radiative transfer in Jupiter's atmosphere, not many people are going to notice. And so I'm even skeptical about my own work in astronomy. So for an hour maybe, I'm going to be skeptical about the field that I love, namely computing. And be careful. Like most of you, if not all of you, I love computing. I love computers. I've been mucking with computing since Fortran 1 on an IBM 1620 in 1964 or so. Like some of you, at least one of you, I've been on the ARPANET since the mid-'70s, and I've followed it and worked on this. I've been involved in computing security for at least a decade, and hey, I know HTML like the rest of you. I love computing, and I love seeing it thrive. My problem isn't computing. My problem is the culture of computing. I'm worried. I'm worried about this idea that's coming down the pike that says, if you're not online, if you don't have an email address, if you don't have a web address, if you don't have a customized domain name for your own self, then something's wrong with you. That if you want to be important in this society, if you want to do something important, if you're a somebody, then of course you're online. That if you don't have a computer monitor in front of you and a keyboard at your fingertips, then the train of progress is leaving the station, and you're going to miss out on it. Your feet are flat on the platform. You're going to miss out on all this cool stuff that's coming in the future. Well, I'm worried about this because I feel that we in computing have a responsibility to talk not just about the cool things that you can do with computers, but what you lose when you stick your head into cyberspace. And as much as I'd like to talk about the cool, fun things that I'd like to do, not least of which includes what I've been doing lately, namely, I'll switch to this guy. I've been making Klein bottles, which are four-dimensional Mobius loops. These are, if you take a single-sided piece of paper and project into 4 dimensions and then immerse it in 3 dimensions, you get something called a Klein bottle. And I've been making them out of glass lately, and they kind of work kind of neat. And having brought one along, I'll pass one along to the SURF committee, who can pass it along later on as a door prize, if anybody recognizes even what it is. But for those, as much as I love computers and such not, I'd like to talk for a while about not the darker side of computing, but rather the things that I'm skeptical of. And in doing this, remember, I love computers. I'm a propeller head. But I'm worried about the social effects of computers, partly because I now have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, but partly because I keep hearing so much hyperbole, so much promotion about computers, and it sends a shiver up my spine. I'm a little bit unsure about this. Also, I keep hearing this blind optimism of computers that started in the 60s. Real soon now, computers are going to do wonderful things. They're going to translate languages for us. They're going to, expert systems will replace ordinary people. Computers will do wonderful things. And all the time, I get these fantastically huge promises and tiny little things are delivered. Seems to me that quality engineering makes small promises and delivers big time. Well, across the spectrum of computing, especially in public pronouncements, I see giant promises and little deliverables. If we, as computer jocks, are going to have any professional credibility, we're going to have to make smaller promises and deliver higher quality, more transparent, less visible things. Things that are easier to use and don't need as many people to keep them going. If we're going to keep our jobs, if we're going to keep our customers happy, we're going to have to deliver on the promises that we're making. This blind optimism that we're promoting in society can backfire on us. At the same time, I hear a huge amount of optimism about the future of computing. When I log onto the net, I read this horribly black cynicism that says, oh, I don't trust government. I don't believe a thing that religion has for me. I don't trust anything about anything except that which I can deal with myself. This almost bleak view of the world that gives me a bad feeling. Someplace between cynicism and optimism. Hey, someplace in between there is skepticism that says, well, I want to believe it, but prove it to me. So for the next hour or so, or half hour, as long as my chocolate milk lasts, I think I'll be talking about skepticism. Your job is not to agree or disagree with me. That's easy. Your job is to prove me wrong. Your job, both as a Unix jock, as a Sequent liker, as somebody who disagrees with me, is to prove me wrong, not in what you've done, but in what you will do. Show that I'm wrong. Prove me wrong. So having said that, I'm going to talk about skepticism. I'm going to mention 4 things that I keep hearing, 4 myths of computing and the internet that people tell me over and over again. Things that I want to believe because, hey, I'm online. I've been online. 4 things that sound so nice that I hear politicians and people who ought to know a whole lot of things talk about, yet 4 things that somehow or another I don't quite believe. First of all, that in the future, if you want a good job, you got to know computing. The jobs of the future belong to those who know computers, who have fast, instant access to information. The jobs belong to those, good jobs belong to those people who can manipulate information quickly, to those who have, hey, fast microprocessors, to those who have the latest OS installed. Employment depends upon, good employment depends upon technology. Almost as a corollary to this, as a result of our wish for good jobs of the future, is the idea that we need to bring our schools into the 21st century. We have to wire our high schools. We have to wire our elementary schools. We have to bring our schools online, put our students behind computers so as to give them the necessary skills so that they'll be familiar with this information age thinking. We have to wire our schools so that our kids will get jobs in the future. Make sense? Allied with this is myth number 3, that we have to drag our libraries into the future. Somehow or another, our libraries have to come into the 21st century. The old idea of books in the library is a warehouse for dead trees, has to be discarded. We have to get information online. That the information of our library, the Library of Congress, has to be online so that you can get it quickly. The bookless library, the digital library, is the library of the future. Myth number 4, you can invent your own myths like this. I'm just repeating things that I hear often. Myth number 4 says, look, information is power. Those people who have ready, fast access to information at their fingertips, at their keyboards, they are empowered, because this, of course, is an empowering technology. I want to believe all of this just as all of us in this room want to believe it, because look, we're all members of the digerati. We're all tied in. Every one of us has an email address. Every one of us, has a browser fixed up. So how come I'm skeptical? How could I not believe all of this? Jobs. Well, for a moment, remember, my background's in physics. As much as I try to hide it, I'll admit it. And as a physicist, as somebody in physics, one of the cool things is we control time. If you want to make a time machine, you don't ask a poet, you don't ask an English language, you don't ask a computer jock, you ask a physicist, because we know what time is. So for a minute, hop into my time machine. Remember Professor Peabody's Wayback Machine? You go back in time. Well, if you put the batteries in the other way around, you can go forwards in time. So I'll take a time machine and turn the knob all the way up to the year 2100. It's 100 years from now, right? So, okay, it's now the year 2100. We're scooping over into the year 2100. What do you see? What do we notice in our society of the year 2100? Well, it's pretty clear. You look around, first thing you notice, we're all dead. Almost all of our kids are dead too, most of them. Our grandchildren are the people that everyone complains about, and our great-grandchildren, hey, they're the ones running the show. And our great-great-great-grandchildren don't like it. And, okay, name a few other things that are happening in the year 2100. We are still arguing about Unix standards. People are... In the year 2100, people will be laughing about the fraud of Y2K and wondering whether there's going to be a new problem coming up at the turn of the century. Now look around for a minute, and you're in my time machine still. Look around and, check out the jobs. Oh, over there's a job. There's a job wanted. There's another job listing. What are the jobs that are going to be around the year 2100? Well, you can name them as well as I can. In the year 2100, we're still going to need doctors, we're still going to need dentists, we'll still need ballet dancers, we're still going to need truck drivers, taxi cab drivers, we're still going to need people who will set up things on tables with water in them. In the year 2100, we're still going to need AV people, we're still going to need television operators, probably. We're still going to need heart surgeons, we are still going to need people to sweep the floor. These are all jobs that are cogs in the gears of civilization. We can't live without these things. We can't live without this kind of world. It's as much as I'd like to think of the year 2100 as we all live in cubicles and type on computer monitors and browse the web, I don't think that world is going to happen. Jobs of the future will be similar to those of today. We will still need plumbers in the year 2100, and no matter how many times, I can't imagine double-clicking on an icon and having my kitchen sink drain cleared out. Yet somehow or another, I asked myself, where are the plumbers going to come from? Odd thing. Over in Berkeley, California, today, it's in the year 1999, I can hire an HTML programmer, a graphics person, for about 40 or 50 bucks an hour. Pretty good wages. But when I want to hire a plumber, I pay 125 bucks an hour. How come? Well, one reason is a plumber has to carry a lot of tools, have a truck, an HTML programmer doesn't have to leave her bedroom. There's another reason, though, why plumbers charge a lot more, namely that if I need a plumber, I need that plumber right now. I can't hang around. When my drain is clogged up, I can't wait around for a couple more days. But almost always I can wait for the HTML. I know this because I've paid programmers to write it for me. And they're always late, yeah. There's at least another important reason why it's expensive to pay for a plumber around Berkeley. And not so expensive for a computer jock. Namely that every school in the San Francisco Bay Area, from San Jose, Cupertino, up through Oakland, Berkeley, Marin, Richmond, all the school districts teach computing. Every school teaches computers some way or another. Almost no schools in the Bay Area teach plumbing. Well, when we tell everybody to become a programmer, and we allow only the idiots and dodos to become plumbers, neither our programs nor our pipes are going to hold water. And what I'm asking is, how long will it be before, like we don't have many plumbers left? What's going on in our society where we value people typing on a keyboard, but we have no value at all for the ability to solder a pipe together? I can't figure it at all. Jobs, there's another job that I think is going to exist in the year 2100. Notice they turned the video switcher off. There's another job that's going to be around the year 2100. Namely, we're going to need dentists. Well, when I go to a dentist, there's this really important thing that I've got to have. There's something I want in my dentist, and I want this a whole lot in my dentist. I want my dentist to pat me on the I want my dentist, first of all, to be able to drill my tooth and fill the filling. Right? That's what we want in dentists. Well, that's a skill you can't download from any FTP site. You can't get it from the web, and none of you believe that we're going to have remote dentistry in the next 100 years. None of you are going to be the first one to try it. That skill, the ability to drill a tooth and make your tooth feel better, that's a skill that you can't get off the web. There's another skill that I want from my dentist. It's a real essential, important skill. Not just the ability to drill my tooth the right way, but I want my dentist in the middle of this to tap my shoulder and say, "Cliff, yep, I know that right now your tooth doesn't hurt because you got Novocaine. But in 2 days, it's going to hurt a whole lot. But trust me, in a week, your tooth will feel better." That's a skill. The ability to inspire trust that you not only can't get from the web, but it's an essential skill. The ability to deal with people. The ability not just to inspire trust, but to work with people. You not only can't get it from the web, but the more time you spend with your head poked into cyberspace, the less sharp your skills are in actually dealing with a live human being. If you want to deal with a live human being, the only way to do it is to embarrass yourself and, walk up to them and shake hands. The ability to latch onto somebody and realize that they're on your side and to work closely with them. That's a skill that will be essential in the year 2100, just as it is today. Hey, I don't think I've met anyone who lost a job or was fired because they were incompetent in computing. but I have met people who were fired because they couldn't get along with other employees or customers. Seems to me that that's going to be true in the future. And yet, if we want to develop a nation of isolates, where people can't get along with one another, where people just don't like each other, we can't develop that ugly society any better than by telling our children to spend as much time as possible behind the screen. If you want our kids to get along with one another, you're way better off pointing them into places where there's other kids to fool around with. If we want our teenagers to learn to get along with adults, put them in a room with other adults. If we feel that the best way for people to get along with one another is to, send email and deal with each other over two-way interactive video, then supply all of our classrooms with videos and email. My point here is that jobs of the future, just like jobs of today, won't depend so much upon the ability to boot a Unix system or to install a device driver, but rather jobs of the future will depend upon being able to look at somebody in the eye and smile and even across a room get a sense of, I'll bet I would like that person. This is something, again, that the more time that our society directs our children and our young adults at cyberspace, the less able we will be to sharpen and develop these capabilities. Again, I don't want to be right. I don't want anyone to agree with me, and I don't want anyone to disagree with me. Rather, I feel it's your job to prove me wrong in the systems that you develop. Prove me wrong in the web pages that you put up. Prove me wrong in your email. Show me that interactive page on the web that is as compelling and as inspiring as a face-to-face interaction. Show it to me. Prove it to me. Send me email to prove it. Which, somebody's going to tell me when to shut up, no? Maybe not. Schools, you can tell what I'm about to say, so I'll say it anyway. Schools of the future. I don't think that computers belong in schools. In fact, I pretty much doubt that they improve schools. In fact, as much as I love computers, I'm beginning to think that for every good thing, for every improvement that cool technology does in our society, there's a cost to it. Indeed, I think that only a goose believes that there's this cornucopia of technology that delivers all sorts of wonderful things without extracting a cost. Wasn't it Faust? Yes, no, Faust? Who said, Faust, oh yeah, Faust! We're out of the year 2100. Go back 100 years to Goethe. Goethe's German poet named Goethe talked about Faust, and Faust was this fantastic guy who went out and said, abracadabra, and in front of him, poof! It's Mephistopheles himself comes up, and Mephistopheles, the devil, says, yes, you summoned me. Who are you? And Faust, Professor Faust, this 30, I'm 30 years old? What? 30 minutes. No. So Faust says, I am Faustus, Professor Faustus, I am in every way your equal. And he signs this pact with the devil that says essentially, look, I'll trade you omniscience and omnipotence for my almighty soul. It's a Faustian bargain. Well, in one sense, I think that's kind of what we've done here in computing. Namely, what the internet delivers is power. Remember, it's an empowering medium, as well as knowledge. And nobody is talking about the downside of computing, but let me mention it here in schools. There's this feeling that says, we need the high-tech classroom with computers and multimedia. Well, I went to public school 61 in Buffalo, New York, and Mine was a high-tech school. We had film strips. Remember film strips? It was a gas. I used to love film strips. In fact, all of us loved film strips. We thought that film strips were wonderful because every Wednesday at school, every Wednesday would be film strip day. And all of us kids would be all charged up saying, it's film strip day. Today, film strip. At 1:30 in the afternoon on Wednesday, lights would go down, teacher would pull down the screen, there'd be a fun time for us. All of us kids would be sitting there all pumped up and excited. We'd grab the gear shift lever of our brain and go zip! And then we would shift into neutral. For the next hour, we didn't have to think. We'd just sit there, freewheeling in our brains because, hey, it was fun, it was easy. It was a little game for us. Everybody loved it. The teachers liked film strips because for an hour they didn't have to teach. Kids loved film strips because for an hour they didn't have to learn. Parents liked them because, it was the latest, greatest, coolest, highest tech. The school board liked it because it was cheap. But, hey, each of you have seen as many hundreds of film strips as I have. Name 3. Okay, now, name 3 teachers who had a profound and lasting influence on your life. That's easy, you can probably name 5. What's the most important thing in a classroom? A good teacher and a motivated student. Anything that separates them, whether it's a film strip, an instructional video, an educational movie, a multimedia system, an internet link, a web-driven educational system, anything that separates a student from a teacher is going to be wonderful fun for the kids. But it'll be of dubious value, grossly dubious value for actual learning. The big lie of computing, the big myth of computing in school, the falsehood that offends me so deeply is you can buy this computer, install it in the classroom, or buy the software for your kid because it will, here comes the lie, make learning fun. Am I the only one in North America who has to work to learn? Am I the only one who thinks that learning takes discipline? That learning isn't fun. Learning takes work. Learning takes commitment from a teacher and from a student. Learning is a process of inspiration. That learning requires doing your homework. That learning requires a sense of duty, not just duty to a school, but duty to scholarship. And to turn learning into a game, into a fun educational entertainment process, is to denigrate the most important thing that we can do as human beings, to learn and to teach. Saying that learning should be fun is to say that if I'm not having fun, I must not be learning. I no longer believe that quality learning is a game. Yes, there's times that when I've studied physics and thermodynamics, it's been fun. But it's the purpose of reading Landau and Lifshitz thermodynamics text is not to have fun. It's to think and learn and somehow or another reach out to a body of knowledge and have that author reach out and teach me. Have a professor reach out and teach me. Have a sixth grade teacher reach out to me. That's not fun. That has something to do with teaching. It has something to do with learning. It has something to do with inspiration and commitment. But it's darn little to do with turning learning into a game. The most popular computer program sold to kids today is Math Blaster. All of you have seen Math Blaster, $29.95. It has a billboard up here, and on the billboard, you have little UFOs going by, and they're labeled 11, 12, 13, 14, and over here is a number process that says, what is 8 plus 5? And your job is to shoot down UFO number 13. If you shoot it down, the little robot claps, and well, I looked at this, and it's a lot like flashcards. Teach them arithmetic flashcards. However, this one is advertised as making learning fun. The flashcards are, hey, this is a useful tool in teaching arithmetic. It only costs $3, but the Make Learning Fun one costs $29.95. But there's a big difference between flashcards and Math Blaster, and it's the subtext. What's the subtext of Math Blaster? And the subtext, I think, is crystal clear. It says, my child, it's important for you to learn arithmetic. It's so important. Arithmetic is such an essential skill in life that I've spent $1,000 on a computer and $30 on the software. Here, please spend the next 45 minutes shooting down UFOs and learning the math tables. The subtext of the flashcard system goes like this. My child, arithmetic is important. It's such an important skill in life. It's so useful that I, your parent, I, your teacher, am going to spend the next hour playing the flashcard game with you, even though I already know the answers. So that later on in life, whenever in your life you have an arithmetic problem confronting you, figuring a tip to a taxi cab driver, just adding up how much a column is. Anytime you have arithmetic problems in your life, way in the back of your mind, where you can't even tell it's there, you'll realize that there's a relationship between I, your teacher, I, your parent, and yourself. That arithmetic is not just a prom stuck in your brain by a computer program, but is a living relationship within your mind, within your life. I don't know who taught me arithmetic. I do remember in first and second grade learning them from two rather drudgery-like teachers. But in learning arithmetic and knowing it today, I thank them for spending their time teaching it to me. I can't say the same about thanking Math Blaster for teaching arithmetic. But perhaps the future generation will say thank you to Math Blaster for carrying on arithmetic. I hope so. My sense is that it's possible to learn essentially everything that we need to know up through high school without a computer, and to do so quite well. And there are some things that a computer simply can't teach you, or teach you the opposite thing. Good example is art. Go online and essentially every art museum has a collection of beautiful art pictures on the screen. You click on them, there's the Mona Lisa, click again, there's the Venus de Milo. There's all these pretty pictures. But what it doesn't teach you is how to draw with a crayon, how to sculpt. What the computer isn't going to teach you, it'll teach you choreography, the basics of it, but it's not going to teach you how to dance. The computer will very well put together a PowerPoint presentation for you so that you can read off a monitor and go over your bullet charts. But will it teach you to slip on a banana peel? Will it teach you how to deal with a live audience? Will it teach you how to speak extemporaneously? For all that I like PowerPoint, my own feeling is the talks that I like going to are the ones that people are freewheeling and coming up with ideas off the top of their mind. The technical sessions that I like to go to are not how to install blittity-blit, how to unravel cat, but rather horrible stories that I have about misinstalling Unix. Those lectures I remember, and inevitably, they aren't so much PowerPoint talks. There are people standing up and saying, boy, did I screw it up from the distribution CD on down. What we in computing need is storytelling. Seems to me that it's a gas to tell stories, and too seldom do we actually tell horror stories at users group meetings. As much as everybody here was telling you, hey, volunteer for the board, I'm telling you, volunteer to give a session next year. And don't just give a session on symmetric multiprocessing and how Unix can be divvied up to run on it. Give a session on how things go wrong. You'll get a crowded room there too, and people will love it. Tell stories. In computing across the line, we need more storytelling. It'll happen someday. It's your challenge today to do it. I have a note over here, rule number 2. How much time do I have? 8 minutes. I have a note on my finger to mention rule number 2, which I did not mention at my previous surf talk, which I ought to mention right now, which talks about, a lot of times people are wondering about how to how to optimize operating systems, it turns out that one of the finest ways is through rule number 2, a very useful technique in optimization, and something I'll share with you in a moment. But, oh yeah. Before I go, I ought to just show you my slides so that you can say you saw them all. And I'll just say, oh yeah, I always wanted to be a chess champion. I always wanted to play really great chess. And I thought, hey, the way to do this is to, I wanted to be a good chess player. So I'm going to learn how to play chess. In Buffalo, New York, I wanted to be the chess champion of Fillmore Junior High School. And the way to do it would be, I'd get a book, 10 tips on how to win at chess. This guy, Arthur Bisquer, is an international grandmaster. He knows his stuff. He's going to teach me and you how to win at chess. And this is going to be great stuff because, he's a real chess player, and he's a grandmaster who's going to teach me how to win at chess. It turns out all you really need to know to win at chess is rule number 2. Whenever in doubt, so I buy this book. Whenever you're in doubt, whenever you have questions about how to win at chess, and you're stuck in a move, and you're wondering, what do I do? How do you win at chess? Rule number 2. It works well for tuning operating systems as well. When in doubt, make the best possible move. George Gilder hasn't mentioned this at any of his future meetings, but it works in developing a customer base as well. It's also, for those of you of the female persuasion, for those of you who are of an opposite gender, rule number 4 is useful, namely, know what the men are worth. And having said that, I'll just mention along the way that how much time do I have? 30 minutes? Let me tell you about flashcards. Anyway, libraries. I keep hearing about how the library of the future will be all digital. We'll be able to download anything that we want from the internet. Well, I don't believe it. Of all the things that you can do online, the one thing you can't do is read a book. I can download the Peloponnesian War easily. It's public domain. But after I read about 2 or 3 pages, my hand starts to twitch and I reach for the mouse and I keep wanting to switch to another page. You can't read off the World Wide Web. One of the dirty little secrets of the internet is it's wonderful for graphics, but it's terrible for actually reading. You can read a paragraph, a page, sometimes even 2 pages, but I challenge anyone to read Huckleberry Finn from the internet. Your eyes go daffy after a short while. Well, if we want to discourage kids from reading, if we want to show them how boring books really are, I can't think of a better way to do that than to point them at a computer screen and say, here, go see the animated version of Huckleberry Finn and then try to read it on your internet monitor. They'll right away gravitate towards the cool one with all the pretty pictures and little games, and they'll ignore the written version. If we want to discourage our children from reading, the World Wide Web is perhaps the most powerful tool that we have to do so. If we want, libraries. If we want to destroy our libraries, about the most powerful weapon that we have for doing this is computing. Why would I say that? Well, I did a survey in Berkeley on Telegraph Avenue, which is sort of the ne'er-do-well area, and did a survey. I asked people on the street. I stopped people on the street and said, what do you want in your public library? I asked 12 people, what do you want in your public library? 6 of them told me to go away. They didn't have any money to give me. Of the half dozen that actually answered, every one of them said, I want lots of books. Several of them said, I want newspapers and magazines. A couple of them said, I want a good librarian. Two of them said, I want late night hours. I want the library to be open to 10 o'clock. One of them said, I want Saturday morning story hours for my kids. Okay. None of them said, I want multimedia, CD-ROMs, internet systems, and things like this. Well, naturally, because the people who really are tuned in and propeller heads like me, we've got it at home. We don't need to go to the library. Well, year after year, I notice the funding for my public library in Berkeley, the amount of money that's going to librarian salaries, to acquisitions, to newspapers, journals, and things like that, year in year it's dropping. Boop, 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 boop. There's one area of the library budget that's going up year after year. It's the amount of money being spent on new media. Computer links, Nexus, Lexus, things like this. It keeps going up. What's happening? We're spending gobs of money, library money, on things that people really aren't desperate for, but the things that they really want, namely a competent librarian, late night hours, lots of books, lots of magazines, that stuff's being pushed aside by the technology that I love. And it offends me very deeply. Because in the defense of liberty and literacy, the most powerful weapon that we have is our library. To support our libraries means to support literacy. And it offends me deeply to see the technology that I love, that I've helped build, that you have helped build, be used to undermine this most precious institution of our society. To that extent, I am strongly against the digital library. It's a wonderful way to make a mockery of literacy, which has nothing to do with what I'm going to say in a minute, I hope. Information is power. Well, this myth, I think all of you can realize, is a fraud. Information isn't power. All of you have lots of information, with the exception of one or two people. Very few have much power. In fact, as I think about it, hey, who's got the most power in our neighborhood? Who's got the most power in your city? Well, politicians do, and they're famous for being badly informed. Who's got the most information in your city? Librarians do, and they're famous for being powerless. Information has nothing to do with power. If you want power, you do what a politician does. Namely, you make compromises. You listen to what one person has to say, you listen to what someone else has to say, you listen to a third, and you say, I can't make all three of those people happy, but I can kind of make a compromise that will offend one of them only a little bit and make two of them sort of a little bit happy. You design your multiprocessor to optimize for the problem, rather than developing a system that gives you all information. You make compromises. You make very human compromises. And in so doing, you work with people and you get power. And the way you lose power is by offending enough people until eventually somebody says, hey, why should we deal with them? Let's make our own system. Information isn't power. What Francis Bacon, in fact, not only information isn't power, but what we label, what we like to label as the information superhighway, is actually a data superhighway. What is commonly labeled, what comes across the internet isn't information, but rather lots and lots, terabytes, mega gigabytes of data. Data is bits and bytes and numbers and words, but there's a long distance between data and information. Information has utility. Information has timeliness. Most of what comes across the internet has neither of these. Information answers a question at hand. Information has accuracy. Information has a pedigree. You know who wrote it. You know who stands behind it. Data has neither. Information has a sense of conciseness. It doesn't go on and on. It answers a specific question. There's a long distance from data to information, but there's a long, wide gulf from information to what I feel is important in our society, namely knowledge. Knowledge, unlike information, has something to do with understanding, recognizing that it's ideas that turn the cranks in my brain rather than just facts. Knowledge, unlike information, deals in understanding and a sense of recognizing that the really good questions are difficult to answer. Typically in a classroom that is information-driven, you have a question that goes something like this. What is the capital of North Dakota? You know, A, B, C, D, E. Pierre? Bismarck. Okay, well, difference of opinion. A classroom based upon knowledge, I suggest, well, let me recast that. It seems to me that the correct question, the correct answer, is neither Pierre nor Bismarck, but the correct answer is, who cares? That the right question is, why is Bismarck the capital of North Dakota? Who bribed who 150 years ago to make it so? What group of natives got pushed off their land? Exactly what politician got a padded wallet out of this? What's the geophysical implications for Bismarck being the capital of North Dakota? Those are snaggy, difficult, barbed questions. Your answers are way different from mine. Those are questions whose answers you can't get from an encyclopedia or download from the internet. Sure, you can get some kind of answer, but you can't get your own personal answer. The questions that the SAT asks, what's the capital of North Dakota and such not, hey, those are simple questions. Any question whose answer shows up on the internet is probably unworthy of being asked. Those questions whose answers reside and you have to create an answer to, those are the tough, snaggly ones, the ones that we as students don't like to answer, the important questions of our lives. Yeah, it's real easy to talk about who created Unix. It's a tough, snaggly problem to ask, what is the future of Unix? Your answer's different from yours, from yours, from yours, from yours, from yours. None of us know, but each of us could write 2 pages about our opinions and what we think the future will be. In that sense, knowledge, rather than information, is what I seek in our society. There's a long distance from data to information, a gulf from information to knowledge, and sadly a long, long ocean between knowledge and what I wish existed in our society, namely wisdom, a sense of recognizing which questions are worthy of asking. Wisdom oftentimes involves experience or recognition that many questions aren't worthy of being answered, that the really tough questions having to do with how we interact with each other are snaggly and tough. Wisdom comes, I suspect, with maturity, although I haven't seen it yet. I suspect it comes from experience in dealing with people. In that case, I have a lot more to go. Experience, understanding, a sense of compassion, humor, warmth. And sad to say, I'm concerned that we don't see much of it within computing. Where are the graybeards of computing? Hey, computers have now been around for like 50 or 60 years. Yet we still call our field an infant field. It's still growing, but where are the I can point to several graybeards of physics, people that I can ask when I have a question in physics. But I have a tough time coming up with someone who's a graybeard in computing. Hey, should I solve this problem using object-oriented languages, or should I use something like C? Hey, I've got a payroll coming up. Should I program it in C, or should I buy an applications package? Where are the whys within our field? Sad to say that too often in Silicon Valley, after you turn 30 or 35, you're shuffled off either into management or into sales. And the technical people who love programming, hey, it's seen that, hey, oh, you use C and C++. What an obsolete language. Today, you have to be writing Java applets and such not. I shouldn't say there's no, but there is a sad lack of appreciation for experience and wisdom within the field that I love so deeply, namely computing. Again, it's not your job to agree or disagree with me. It's your job to prove me wrong. Show me the graybeards of computing who are doing so many cool things and who I can turn to with my problems. Show me how we actually value their experience and their understanding. Show me how Unix is developing into a force for the good of humanity rather than as a wonderful plaything for propeller heads like us. I yearn for it. How much time do I have? 5? 2 hands. 10 minutes. Hot damn. One thing that people will constantly come up to me and say, hey, Cliff, you don't understand. Computers are just tools. And get off your horse. Computer's just a tool. Treat it that way. It's sort of a way of saying computers are neutral devices. They can be used for good, they can be used for bad, and they can be used for interesting things and boring things. Well, that's true. On the other hand, I've never in my life gone to a screwdriver users group convention. And it's a bizarre kind of tool. It's a bizarre school district that puts a radial arm saw on every student's desk. This is a weird tool that changes the way we solve problems and changes the problem and causes us to work on one problem and ignore another problem. Yes, the computer is a tool, but to a person who only knows how to use a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Oh, I have a light bulb to install. Whack, whack. Claiming the computer as a tool is a wonderful way to pat us on the back and say, we're not doing anything wrong. But I feel it's our responsibility as computer jocks to look a little bit deeper than that. And, well, again, prove me wrong. One thing that as much as I like, as much as I love computers and such not, one thing that I keep hearing people talk about, I need a piece of paper, sorry. One thing I hear people talk about is information. The information age is this wonderful way to make make a lot of money, because the economics of information show us that there's lots of money to be made. Well, I've been thinking about it and wondering about the economics of information, and one of the cool things about being a physicist is they don't teach you any economics. It's wonderful, and as a result, I'm perfectly qualified to say nothing at all about economics, and I will. No, I'm perfectly unqualified to talk about economics, and I will. Something like that. I'd like to talk about the economics of information for all of a minute, and I'll exhaust everything that I know, and I'm surprised that no one else has talked about this. I've never read it in a book, but it occurs to me. Seems to me that anything we want in life falls on something that I call the economic triangle. And the economic triangle looks something like this, and it has 3 sides and 3 corners, and on it is cheap, fast, and good. So anything I want falls someplace on this triangle. So if I want food, hey, I want food, I know how to do it. Cheap, fast food, I can get it. There's McDonald's. No question, it's cheap, it's fast, or, fast as easy. However, it's of dubious quality. However you define quality, maybe you could say McDonald's is high quality because it's quite sterile, it doesn't have any germs, so in one sense it's very good food, but debatably it's not. Someplace it lies on this triangle. If I want good food that's easy and fast, I go to a good restaurant. From experience, I'll just mention that if you walk around the corner here later on, there's an excellent restaurant. It's pretty fast, but it's no longer cheap. You pay for it. You want good food and you want it fast, you pay money for it. And we know this from common experience. You want quality, you pay for it. Well, not all the time. There's a way to get good food cheaply, namely home cooking. It's good food, it's cheap, but it's no longer fast. It's no longer easy. You have to invest yourself in it. You've got to do your homework. You got to cook. And, there's all sorts of compromises you can make. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that economically, we're accustomed to this kind of compromise and trade-off. Good, cheap, and fast. You can't have all at the same time. It applies to food, applies to most everything. I bet you it even applies to relationships. Now, my one peculiar insight says this. One of the very few things that I realize is this also applies to information. If I want cheap, fast information, I know where to get it. Your friend and mine, the internet. It's the McDonald's of information. It's as fast as your modem or your server will drive. It's as cheap as your ISP will let it go. But is it good? Is it quality information? Is it timely? Does it come with a pedigree? Did somebody stand behind it and say, this is factually true? Or is it somebody's got, sort of parboiled opinion that smells like fact? Is it some information that is actually novel and new? Is it something that someone has been hiding for a long time? Or is it essentially public information delivered to you thanks to the internet? What makes information good, of course, is not just quality, is it accurate, but also, are you one of the few people who know it? Once something's uploaded to the web, everybody presumably knows it's if they search correctly. Well, what if I want good information that's fast and easy? I can get it. I log into Nexus, or Lexus, or Dow Jones Blattity-Blat at $200 an hour. Any one of the giant databases. It costs money. It's no longer cheap. It's quality information. How come? Because a professional journalist stands behind it. It's been edited and published. What's grossly missing from the internet are those horrible, evil people called editors who serve as barometers of literary quality. Of all things that editors do, you're standing there wanting to boot me off? 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Good luck. I'm going to take 10, but I'll say 5. If I want good information, cheap. Oh, yeah, editors are extraordinarily important people. On the internet, you are your own editor. A horrible thing to be, incidentally. If I want good information, cheap, I can get it. I go to your friend and mine, the library. And there's lots and lots of compromises. If someplace or another over here is a graduate student. And you can make your own compromise. What I'm trying to point out, though, is that there's this economics of information, and somehow or another it works properly. All of which has nothing to do with what's written on my little finger, since I only have about 2 minutes to talk, namely all truth. And it's useful for me to say all truth because this way it's a useful thing to shut up on, namely all truth. Somebody asked me earlier, would I talk about what happened to me long ago in catching hackers, and I'd love to, but those of you who remember me from 7 years ago heard me say it before, so I won't. Instead, I'll just mention in 1972, I was a physics student at the State University of New York at Buffalo, studying physics, and one day in April, I was walking home with a stack of physics books under my arm, this Landau and Lipschitz, thermodynamics, statistical mechanics, relativity theory, all this stuff. I'm walking home, and there's a riot going on because Nixon's invaded Cambodia and people are shooting tear gas off and things like this. Students are rioting. I'm saying, geez, I don't have anything to do with that. Hey, I'm a physicist, so I'm walking home. And this cop, this policeman comes running up to me and says, you're a student. And I say, yeah, I'm a student, but hey, I'm a physics student. I'm a physics major. Science, thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, and stuff like this. He says, "No, you're a student." Reaches behind him, pulls out a rifle, aims it at me, goes, "Woof!" And this tear gas grenade, the size of a Pepsi can, goes, "Whoosh!" in front of me. I take half a breath, and I can't breathe. And this cop over there, 20 feet away, has a rifle. He's coming after me, and he wants to clunk me over the head. And I'm saying, I gotta get out of here. Where do I go? I keep saying physics, astronomy, quantum mechanics, thermodynamics. This cop's chasing after me, and he wants to kill me. I'm running across campus. I'm trying to get out of there as fast as I can, saying, what do I do? So I chase around. I run over I go running over to Hayes Hall, which is the administration building, where there's this big administration tower. It's one of these bell towers, one of these places that has a bell tower, and there's this. I go running in, climbing through a window on the first floor, and this cop is chasing me, cursing me. I keep saying, I'm a science student, just physics. Leave me alone. And I climb in through the window, and this cop chases after me. I run through the first floor, second, third floor. I get up to the third floor. I see this door about maybe yet big, and it looks at me and it opens up, and I climb in, and as I climb in, I see, oh, this is the doorway up to the bell tower. It's one of these clock towers. It has clocks on it. I see this old stairway. I latch the door behind me, start climbing the stairs. As I'm going up there, I'm saying, geez, this is weird. And climbing the stairs, I get about 10 feet up. I see this mechanical thing with brass gears and a pendulum hanging down going tick, tick, tick. It's a pendulum clock. And I look at the pendulum, it's 1 meter long, and I think, oh, square root of the length is proportional to the period. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah. I'm thinking about this, and I'm saying, oh, this is kind of cool. And going tick, 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 and then I think, what am I doing here? Why am I here? All I want to do is study physics, program a PDP-11 in FOCAL, and I'm going tick, tick. And so I climb up another staircase, and up above from this clock mechanism, there's a 1-inch dowel that goes into a differential mechanism, a little 4-way differential that goes into north, south, east, and west clocks. And I look at the clocks going backwards, and I see the clocks going, and think about, oh, it's telling time. And I think of relativity theory and Lorentz contraction and stuff like this, and I'm saying, oh, this is kind of cool, physics. But what am I doing here? Why am I here? And so then I see there's this ladder going up. So I'm in this bell tower. I go climbing up the ladder. I'm climbing up the ladder. At the very top, there's a little hatchway. I push the hatchway open, and over on the top, I see, oh, I can look out through a little window, 4 little windows, looking out in a cupola. I can look through some chicken wire. I look down, and there on campus, there's these police shooting tear gas at students. Over there are these kids throwing bricks at the cops. And I'm thinking, this is insane. Why am I here? What am I doing here? So I say, oh, what's going on here? Why am I here? Then I remember what in English, and I look around, and right next to me, in the middle of this tower, this cupola over me, maybe 2 meters across, there are 4 bells. You know, these bell towers, bong, 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 bong. Huh. I look, and I remember what an English teacher said, namely that there are words inscribed on these bells. And so I take my jacket, wipe off the pigeon dung from one of them, and there's an inscription on it. And now, since I have grossly 0 time left, I'll repeat to you the words on the Hayes Hall Tower bells. All truth is one. In this light, may science and religion endeavor here for the steady evolution of mankind, from darkness to light, from narrowness to broad-mindedness, from prejudice to tolerance. It is the voice of life which calls us to come and learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Clifford. That was great.